Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to a new and exciting edition of The Destruction of America. Today, we are going to discuss a topic that has been in the news lately. It has made me have to change my order of topics that I was going to do. But today, we are going to discuss gun control, gun violence, and what we can do, and the rhetoric that's being spread around about guns. And how that is tending to help divide the country and leading to the destruction of America. Today I brought a friend with because there seems to be a lot of trouble regarding guns. So I brought my friend with. Just for effect, I'm going to show you that a gun cannot hurt somebody. I'm going to sit here and I'll call it worthless and lame and a piece of garbage. I'm going to see if it's going to, pop me by the end of my video. I highly doubt that. So it's here. I am registered. I have a conceal and carry. I am legal to have it. So it is a legal weapon for self-defense or target practice. Whatever I decide I'm going to use it for in a legal manner. This gun will never be used illegally in any way, shape, or form. With it being registered, we now know the FBI and other agencies know that I own it because all they have to do is type my name in and they can see what's in my house. So let's start out with some stats and talk about violence in the United States. So the first interesting stat that I have is in the United States of America. I'll state this ahead. My numbers are from 2016 because that is the most complete and accurate picture that I could get. Not every source has the 2017 numbers posted yet. So I've traveled many sites, done a lot of research, either the FBI, there's websites on violence in America, a whole lot of other things, the CDC, a whole lot of other sites. So I've compiled the best I could off of about 20 different websites that have some of this information. So the first thing, did you know that there are 5.7 million violent crimes in America every year? Again, this is from 2016, but the average is about the same throughout. It slightly drops. It's been on a slightly dropping trend for many years. So 5.7 million crimes, violent crimes, rape, homicide, burglary, carjacking, kidnapping. Those are, I guess, considered the violent crimes. Out of those, 480,000 of those crimes were committed with guns. Don't worry, you're saying that's a lot of crime with guns. Well, here's the thing, that's less than 10%. Doing the math in my head, it's probably 7 or 8% of all crimes in America have guns involved. Here's a better number for you. Out of all of those crimes committed, 61,000 have shots fired. So by shots fired means the gun was discharged. So we go from 10%, 7% of all crimes are committed with handguns. So roughly 12.5% of those gun crimes actually have a shot fired. Out of those, roughly 46,000 result in somebody being shot. And again, you say that's a lot of people. Here's the flip side of that. Less than 25% of incidents involving shots fired result in a death. 31,000 result in injury. So what we're looking at is 25% of shots fired incidents hit nothing. So we call them stray bullets, whatever you want to call them. More stats to go along with that. 7,000 of those incidents involve handguns. 370 involve rifles. 260 involve shotguns. And for all the stats that I can find, it says roughly 3,000 don't have a stated type of gun. We could probably consider that more than likely handguns, because if they were rifles, or assault rifles as they call them, which we'll dig into soon, you know they would list them as assault rifles. So let's break some of these shootings down a little bit. So out of all of those, they claim that 346 incidents a year are mass shootings. The mass shootings for this purpose are where where more than 2 people were shot. That does not necessarily mean that people died in all 346 of those incidents. That was just a shooting. So that could be 10 people getting a bullet in the arm. But we don't know because they don't break them down that well. 2,300 of those shooting incidents, or deaths to be more specific, are police involved. 300 roughly were police being shot, 2,000 were police shooting at. 2,500 are home invasion shootings, where someone breaks into your house and shoots you. That's pretty scary. 2,000 are for self-defense, which is a pretty good number, because those would probably be homicides for a victim, not the shooter like it was. 2,000 are accidents, people shooting themselves on accident. Just means that's 2,000 people that should not be handling firearms. To put it better yet still, there are 42,000 suicides in America every year. 21,000 of those are involving guns. So we could also, other numbers, 1,500 are domestic violence homicides involving guns, and there's roughly 5,000 that are attributed to gangs and gang violence. So out of all of this, it seems that the worst part of all of the murders and deaths that have happened from guns are attributed to gang violence. So 5,000, close to darn near 30% of all shootings are gang related. That's a pretty high number if you ask me. And we could probably assume that none of those gang violence related incidents are legal gun owners. We could probably say that most of the home invasions are not, you know, legal gun owners. I mean, we could look at this and say, look, it's not a problem with the guns, it's a problem with the people that carry them. So if you're illegal and you're carrying guns, you're probably, you know, the cause of most of this problem. Legal gun owners in general are not murderers. They don't go on shooting sprees. Are there incidents where legal gun owners do? Yes. We have to look at Parkland. He legally obtained a gun, but at the same time he was definitely mentally disturbed. He definitely had a whole lot of problems at home. In instances he should not have ever been able to purchase that gun. I know in the state of Wisconsin I had to do a full criminal background check, where they actually call the courthouse if they see something and talk to them and say, hey, was this or this involved? And then the courthouse will give them specifics of any incident they might have a question about. I know this because I went through it. I talked to the state's ATF because I thought it was taking a long time. At the same time, I was also obtaining my conceal and carry permit, which required me to speak to the ATF. So I know the background check system pretty well because I called and talked to them. Is it 100%? No. But for the most part, for however many years that this type of background check has been in, it has done its job. Let's look at some of the other specifics here. The states of California, Texas, and Illinois make up the majority of all these gun-related deaths. California's about 2,000. And if you know California well enough, you know it's mostly liberal. Liberals push gun control. And according to many sources and sites, California is one of the toughest places to obtain a firearm. Legally, you have to get a firearms identification card. You have to purchase any gun you buy through a licensed dealer, and you're subject to all their background checks. Texas, I am confused why this is on the list that high. I know there's a lot of shootings down there, but it is an openly conservative state that says you should have your guns. I can only attribute a lot of that to gang violence, the border being right there, because we know a lot of border security, border patrol gets shot. So we know the number is high and it's probably illegal. But again, they don't break down all those numbers where I could find them to see what it actually is in Texas specific. Illinois is still listed as one of the harder states to obtain a weapon, but upon doing further research, there are a couple municipalities that have certain laws that toughen the gun laws. Chicago, they say, is very hard to get a gun, but reality is that it's through licensed dealers in Chicago as well. And we know most of the murders in Chicago happen from gang violence. We also know if we take Chicago, Baltimore, New Orleans, New York, and DC out of the homicide count from weapons, like handguns, that the murder rate in the United States drops down to one of the lowest in the civilized world. So we've got 4 to 5 cities that make our numbers look bad. Reality is that this country is not that bad, considering some other places. So that being brought up, let's look at the other places. The US is ranked number 18 in the world for murder rate, with a 3.6 out of 100,000 people. And you would think, wow, that's a bad number. But not really. Let's get to the bad numbers. Honduras, where guns are banned, has a 66.64% per 66.64 people per 100,000 shot with guns and killed. That is by far and large the highest murder rate in the industrialized world. Venezuela comes in next with 39 per 100,000 people. Swaziland, which is in the middle of South Africa, I believe, 38.6 per 100,000. Jamaica, 30.38 per 100,000. Then we look to a country where guns are almost required by law to be on your person at all times, like Switzerland. Their murder rate is 0.21 per 100,000 people. Murder is basically non-existent in Switzerland, where open carry and gun laws are put into place to make you actually want to carry. So we look at this, the first 4 that I mentioned, Honduras, Venezuela, Swaziland, Jamaica, all have very strict gun laws. But yet crime is rampant. Guns and violence are rampant with those tough numbers. Then let's look at the real issues here. We are trying to look at saving lives here, but when we look at homicide, homicide is number 16 on the list of causes of death that are not natural causes of death. Number 1 and 2. Number 1 is heart disease. Number 2 is cancer. Number 3 is chronic lower respiratory disease. All 3 of those are tied into smoking. Smoking is legal if you're 18. The government taxes it, but it's still legal. Interesting. And those together attribute for well over 1 million people dying every year. Guns, again, 15,000. The next one on the list is accidents. Almost 150,000 people die in accidents every year. What are we doing to protect those people? Wow. Then we look at stroke, Alzheimer's, diabetes, all of which attribute a lot more deaths than guns do. Then we have drug overdoses at 77,000, which is 5 times more than guns cause. But what are we doing? We have a regulated industry, but drugs are still pouring in and killing people. Huh. I would think that it's harder to get a gun than get drugs. Well, it definitely is harder to get a gun legally than it is to get drugs. We can all go stand on a corner and wait for someone that looks suspicious and say, hey dude, you got something? And after a day of doing that, we could guaranteed find someone to sell you drugs. A lot faster than you can find someone to sell you a gun. Then we have influenza and pneumonia on the list, right after drug overdoses. And we know that the medications that could help people aren't as effective as they could be, but yet guns are the problem. When we do guesses and checks on the flu virus and pneumonia vaccines. Then we have nephritis. I have no idea what that is. The next cause on the list is suicide, 44,000 that year. After that is chronic liver disease and cirrhosis. And hypertension right after that. And both of those come from drinking, but alcohol is still legal. Interesting. So we find out 2 things that are highly legal. And even with the drug overdoses, the majority of that is prescription pill overdoses are opiates. All of that stuff is still legal. Is it monitored? Yes. But it's legal. And it's killing people. Smoking and drinking have a purpose to make you feel better. But they're not medications. And they're not going to save your life. They're only going to take it. A gun can save your life. It can be used for hunting. It's used for self-defense. But yet we want to take these away from people. And before you go and say, look, no one wants to take your guns, that's 100% lie. They do want to take your guns. They put it under a guise of we need to do this to control guns. It's one step at a time for them until they can take them all. And that's not going to work for me. So our list, the last thing before homicide on the list is Parkinson's disease. And we all know that there's nothing you can really do but medicate, and really there's no medications for that really work except CBDs. And we all know that they will not legalize marijuana to help anybody federally. They'll do it in states, and those states are very smart. So let's get back to the brass tacks here. This country has had multiple gun laws and things that are meant to protect civilians against guns. First and foremost, assault, fully automatic weapons. I'm taking assault out because assault is an action, not an inanimate object, okay? This isn't going to assault me unless someone picks it up to assault me. So machine guns and fully automatic weapons are illegal. They can only be obtained through special permits that you have to pay. I want to say the last time I looked was around $20,000. You have to have a stamp, a license, and they have to be with you and your gun at all times. So you can get them if you're rich. For most people, you will never see a machine gun in your hands. We know that there's a push for high capacity magazines to be taken away, and really they're just trying to control, because the thing is this: if they come to take your guns, they're not coming with 1 or 2 people, they're going to come with 30 or 40. If someone comes to attack us, such as in like the movie Red Dawn, there's going to be hundreds if not thousands where you're going to need a high capacity magazine to protect yourself. There are laws in hunting for like a shotgun. You can only have X amount of shells in the gun at a time. And I believe you can't have high capacity magazines in your rifle while you're hunting. But if I'm out target practicing, I need shells. I'm not going to keep loading the gun up every, couple minutes, whereas I can have an extra couple shells in there and go that way. Most states, what you'll see is that you should buy your guns from a registered gun dealer. There is a gun show loophole that allows gun shows to go up and sell as they please. For the most part at these gun shows, at least the ones I've seen, it's mostly rifles and shotguns. And in the state of Wisconsin, where I am, you don't need to have a waiting period for a rifle or a shotgun purchase. And as we heard from the list before, rifle and shotgun deaths are way low on the list of homicide causes. As a matter of fact, they're behind baseball bats, hands and feet, causes that no one wants to name, and knives. Far behind all of those. So, we look at a state like California where you need ID, you need licensing, and you need to register, and a whole lot of other hoops you need to jump through to buy a gun. They are number one on the list of total amounts of homicides via gun every year. Now you say, well, more regulations would help. No, more regulations will not help because criminals don't follow the law. Law-abiding citizens like myself follow the law. When I carry the gun, I always have my permit with me to make sure I can have it. If I ever talk to a police officer, I forewarn them that I have it. It's like, dude, I have one, and we'll go from there. I'm not going to get shot by telling them I have the gun. We look at cities. Individual cities have banned handguns. Like Washington, D.C. at one point in time had a handgun ban, yet it's pretty high up on the list for murder rate via handguns. Like I said, criminals don't listen to the law. Law-abiding citizens do. We've heard a lot of misinformation because of the Parkland shooting, mainly that it's the government's fault that that shooting happened. In some respects that is true because the FBI was warned ahead of time that this kid was a danger multiple times. They failed to act, and they are a government agency. The Sheriff's Department had 45 calls for this kid. They are a government agency. And multiple other people. And then we find out that the deputies that were there to protect the children failed to act when the shots were being fired. Again, we'll call them a government agency. Problem is, it's not the president's fault. It's not the Congress's fault. It's not anyone in the higher up government's fault that this kid was able to do that. The fault would lie in the fact that the mental background checks aren't in. And in fact, most people will tell you that we need to check mental stability when we buy a gun. I can agree on that. We do need it. Domestic abusers should never have a gun in their hand. I agree on that. We should do it. But raising age limits on rifles and shotguns will do nothing. And aside that, if you're a young parent that feels you need to be protected, your option at that moment in time is a rifle or a shotgun. So in essence, we're taking the rights away from legal citizens to purchase home protection or go hunting. And what you'll find out is most people that hunt probably have guns when they're 15. They have them for a long time. And they go out hunting, their parents give them to them. And to push a 21-year age limit on someone to buy a long gun is ridiculous. In essence, what we really need to get down to is people need to do their jobs. Had the FBI, had the Sheriff's Department, local police done something, that shooting would have never happened. And for anyone to politicize it for their own purposes, or to blame the NRA, who has, by the way, got 5 to 10 million members, and yet not a one of them has been linked to a homicide ever. So we need to question your morals when you're talking about gun control, because it is dividing this country between what we'll call liberals, because those are the people that think we need to take the guns, and conservatives who say we want you to have your right to bear arms. It is causing a great stir. It is splitting this country in half. And what we're going to find out is most of the people over here screaming you need to, over here? Liberals, yeah. The ones that want to take your guns away, most of them have armed security. And a majority of them probably have their own guns. But they want to take your guns so they can control you. They're following Saul Alinsky's playbook. They're following Hitler's playbook. By the way, Hitler disarmed his country before he went and massacred tens of millions of people. He took their guns. In China, their dictator Mao Zedong took all their guns and massacred 20 million people after he took their guns. Benito Mussolini disarmed his people and slaughtered. Everywhere you look where there's mass slaughters in the world, in the time of guns, the people have been disarmed and then they are slaughtered. We cannot let that allow that to happen to this country. I don't care what side you're on. Guns are a legal right. People need them for protection, and we cannot allow anyone to take them away or make it harder for legal citizens to obtain them. That will divide this country and put it into ruins and into the next civil war. So for today, I thank you for watching. Comment, question, let's discuss this. If you've got other views that I missed, opinions you want to discuss, I'm here. I've got the facts. Stay tuned. My next episode is going to be about the Muslim religion and the things they have done to this world over their time here. I thank you for watching Destruction of America, and as always, have a great day.